Quest presents an unabridged recording of Cathy's Christmas Kitchen by Tennant, narrated by Penny Andrews. Chapter 1. Not for the first time, Cathy wished her mum had written this stuff down. Her gaze swept the worktop as she tied a band into her honey-blonde hair to get it out of the way. Whenever she did this, there always seemed to be one stubborn, greying lock that wanted to escape, and it did so now, falling into her eyeline. She blew it out of the way, not bothering to tether it back with the rest of her waves. It would only come loose again anyway. Flour, eggs, butter, baking powder, all the usual ingredients, but Cathy knew there was a secret ingredient if she could just remember what it was. But the days of her mother writing it down were long gone, along with the days when Cathy would have watched more carefully and made notes. There were other recipes, of course. There were books and books, recipes all over the internet, but they wouldn't be the same. They wouldn't be her mother's recipe. With a heavy sigh, she went over to the kitchen table and sat down. Her eyes were drawn to the window, where the November sun streamed in and lit the room with a sort of clean, fresh daylight that came only with the brightest and coldest of winter days. The tiny kitchen of her even tinier cottage was a little dated and in need of redecorating, but it was as welcoming as any, and right now it was warm and cosy, while outside a hard frost glinted on the ground. The cottage stood on the outskirts of the northern town of Linnetford. A small path through a rose garden leading to its wisteria garlanded front door, and had once been the dwelling of the toll-keeper in the days when travellers had to pay to use that stretch of road. The road that ran alongside was now covered in tarmac rather than cobbles, and it was far quieter these days, as most people travelled through Linnetford and the surrounding Staffordshire countryside on the motorway or ring roads. In fact, it wasn't often the road outside Tollkeep Cottage was troubled by much traffic at all, and it was certainly never troubled by the tailbacks that plagued the nearby A Road. Cathy had been for a brisk walk early that morning, soaking up the views, marvelling at how much prettier their grimy old canal path looked with an azure sky above it. And every so often she'd almost make some comment along those lines to her mum, but then she'd remember that her mum wasn't there, and the loneliness would threaten to overwhelm her again. But of course it was silly anyway, because her mum's wheelchair wouldn't have made it along the towpath. They hadn't been walking that way for years, not since her...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?